10 years in the making, the GeForce RTX 20 series.
Hi guys, my name is Borro Dante. Let's talk about the future of graphics. So the main topic today will be, of course, the RTX technology that Nvidia introduced last week. And I watched the full conference, I watched all of their demos and everything, and also I've seen quite a few YouTubers criticizing what we saw, talking about how things are very shady, fishy on Nvidia's side, and how generally the whole demonstration is rather underwhelming and the prices are weird and the whole upgrade of performance is very vague. Right away, I'm gonna say I'm very excited about the new RTX technology. I think Nvidia is doing right now something that is very hard and very necessary to do. And I'm not just talking about the 10 years of development to create the new Turing core that will support this technology.
Trying, failing, all these different algorithms, trying, failing, and finally
have a special ray tracing dedicated core inside of it. What's really hard for Nvidia to do right now is to make sure that this technology will be really implemented into the market. So real quick, for people who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, RT in the RTX abbreviation stands for ray tracing. This is like a huge leap for the real-time computer graphics that we will be lucky to witness very soon.
now, of course, we got to add a whole bunch of paint and a whole bunch of stuff to make it look right, or we could do it this way.
Basically what it means is that all of the lighting, all the reflections and refractions, all the distortions of the glass, all the soft or sharp shadows will be rendered using physical laws of actual rays of light bouncing around, resulting in an absolutely realistic lighting, absolutely realistic and precise reflections. Like generally, very soon, the question of quality of lighting and reflections, generally the quality of rendering in games, will be somewhat gone. The whole question of beauty in games will be completely based on how well the artists, the designers, will actually do their job. There will never be a problem of some shading that feels off, some weird low-resolution shadows, or other problems like that. And most importantly, the developers of games, they won't have to spend a huge amount of time and money on figuring out how to use that half-baked older technology of rasterization that fakes the lighting into just darkening the areas that are calculated they're not in the light area or something like that. That technology, it really doesn't work very well. It's not physically based. It always looks wrong unless you dedicate a lot of time and effort into it to hide the areas where it fails and to try and make it look decent in just one situation, and then for the other situation you have to rebuild the whole lighting model.
Doing this is simply impractical today. The way that you would do it, of course, is that you would fake a whole bunch of lights that would slow down performance. It still won't look right, and all the shadows will look bandy. You would create all kinds of what is called reflection probes made out of cube maps, but unfortunately, they're all moving. So every single scene, you're going to have to create a whole bunch more reflection probes, a whole bunch more cube maps. Those tricks simply are not practical with a scene of this level of fidelity.
It's a huge problem. There's a lot of techniques, a lot of tricks that developers created throughout these years of using the rasterization technology, and all of that is taking away so much time and effort and money, and games cost more while the gameplay hours shorten because there's just not enough money to make a long game or well-detailed game or something game, just because so much time was dedicated to make the lighting work right when the whole technology is just working against you. And with ray tracing, you just put a person who knows how to put lights properly, like a photographer or an artist, and you tell them, use these light sources, put them where you think they should be to make things look beautiful, to make things look impressive, atmospheric, to highlight the tension of the scene or something like that. There will be only talks like that in the development. There will be no need in discussing how to hide some horrible resolution that shows up in some shadows again, because with ray tracing, you just press a button and it works. The only problem that it always had is that it required a huge amount of computation. Not a single graphics card before today could do that. And so, watching the demonstration, many people have a problem with the way the whole performance boost was introduced by the CEO of Nvidia.
Is a processor we call the RT core. RT stands for ray tracing core. 10 gigaраys per second.
I think the main problem was that people watched this presentation expecting to see new games working much faster than they used to on 1080, but instead we had very few demonstrations of the games that are to be released soon without any actual pure comparison of in-game performance between the previous generation and the new one, and we just ended up watching soft pretty shadows and reflections for an hour. And of course for an average gamer that's like, what is this? What are you telling me? Some giga-rays? What the hell are you talking about? How much VRAM? How much frames per second in the games that we already have? And the answer to this situation, why there was no direct comparison of the previous generation to the new one on the example of one game, it happened because the main growth, the most important growth of technology here in RTX is the ray tracing core and the AI core that is filtering noise, but it's pretty much to support the ray tracing. And so to compare it, you need to have a game that works with ray tracing, and there are no games like that at the moment. This is like a conceptually different technology. And again, this all sounds very shady and you don't know what exactly you're paying for with your real money, but keep in mind the following. The basic growth here, the old school growth of performance, is gonna be based on the fact that it's using DDR6 memory, and it's gonna have 11 gigabytes of it. We have 50% more CUDA cores and all the other rasterization cores as well. We're not even talking about the ray tracing tech at all at the moment.
Shading is shading. We're doing shading incredibly well. One of the things that's really great about Turing shader is that we can now overlap or run independently floating point integer, and as a result, it's, call it 1.5 times more performant than it used to be.
But the main thing to understand here is that starting 2019, not a single decent game or even indie game will have any reason to not use RTX, because it's gonna be available in Unreal Engine that is free to use for developers. You just press a button and it works, so it actually will require much less development work from the indie developers, not to mention the big AAA titles.
It's a new computing model, so there needs to be new metrics. Back in the good old days, the vast majority of computation was done in shading. We're basically shading the color, or we're running a program in the shader, and basically we're shading. But in the future, we're going to be doing lighting, we're going to be doing all kinds of image processing, and so the pipeline is completely different.
All the new games will immediately start using this tech. Of course, it's going to be optional because not everyone is going to have RTX, but it's going to be just a switch in the settings, use RTX or not. So it's going to be easily implemented, and the most important thing here, if you're using ray tracing, you are not using rasterization for shadows and reflections, meaning from that classical understanding of growth of performance, we remove the portion of shading and reflections and put it away for the ray tracing core to work on, and now the rasterization core, that is by itself already much more powerful with 11 gigs of DDR6, is gonna have a lot less work to do at all, because all the shadows, reflections, refractions, motion blur, depth of field, that stuff will be all done by a different core. And that's why it's kind of hard to explain what kind of growth of performance you'll have.
The Turing SM and the RT core are both concurrently running. Later on, we're shading and running other parts of the program, the shader program. And so those two parts are running, the FP and the integer. And then finally, when everything is done, we're going to use artificial intelligence. All of our 110 teraflops, 110 teraflops, think of that, is basically 10 1080 Ti's.
Because at the moment, developers didn't get the chance yet to implement this whole thing. This is a completely new architecture, completely new pipeline to work on. All to take away from this is that the performance boost is gonna be awesome. It's gonna be insane, like games are gonna change immediately. I would say this, the whole Nvidia demonstration, when they introduced the RTX generation, I think it was mostly targeted towards developers and indie developers, because they will definitely understand what a huge deal this is.
Rasterization was incredibly powerful. One of its limitations, however, is that every single time you want to light the world, you have to project light from that light. And if you want 2 or 3 lights, that's fine. In the world of global illumination, all of a sudden the number of lights that you would have to cast inside that scene is just insane.
And all the other YouTubers that I watched always pay a lot of attention to the fact how unconvincing, how shady the CEO looks in the presentation, how he's trying really hard. That means he's like trying to sell us the magic beans or something like that. But really, I think that was kind of his mistake, but I mean, what you gonna do? That's how he imagined to pull it off. The problem here is that pretty much the company didn't have a lot to show because there was no real games to show you yet. There was a lot of really impressive real-time demonstrations, but modern gamers only want to see the FPS in 4K at this point. And that's a big problem. We are stuck with one number and we don't want to know anything beyond that. Like, if you're not talking about the FPS and resolution, you're just trying to make us buy something that we don't need. Like, it's not going to be actually powerful and stuff like that. And so the CEO, he was trying really hard to impress you with this because it's very important to do that.
So this is wrong, and let's look at right. Look at that. Delightful.
This is a new technology that is gonna be highly dependent on the new games using it right away. As butthurt as I am, because literally 1 month ago I bought the GTX 1080 because I had to. I couldn't render my videos with the older one because there was no decent support by Adobe anymore for my older graphics card. Right now Nvidia really needs your support, so if you're thinking to buy it or not, buy the cheapest one, buy the 2070. It's pretty much affordable. I think its real price is around maybe $600, I'm not sure. There was some kind of confusion with the numbers, so I'm not sure on that, but generally for 1080 that would be a decent price. And just comparing 1080 to 2070 only on the classical understanding of the performance of the rasterization cores and the memory and stuff like that, 2070 is noticeably more powerful than 1080. So 100% instead of buying 1080 you should buy 2070 when it will be available in a couple of months, I believe. And with that noticeable growth of the classical performance, you will have the full support for the rasterization. Definitely do that. I will really regret my decision to buy a 1080 this summer, like 1 year from now, when everything will be about the ray tracing and I will be sitting here like an idiot with my rasterization. I probably won't. I will probably buy the 2070 or something, I don't know, because this is a huge deal. Of course I'm not gonna buy it right now because I just bought the 1080, but I think a year from now this will be a pretty big thing to consider for me. And a little bit on the nerd side, just to imagine what kind of graphics we will have inside of the 3D editing software. Imagine what ZBrush 5 will look like with the real-time rasterization, or generally just the preview in Blender will have like actual high-end rendering preview implemented right away by default into the viewport. That's totally doable now. How awesome is that? So yeah, if you have the money, if you think it's time for you to buy the new GPU, definitely wait for RTX 2070 that will come out in a few months. Because Nvidia is doing a really awesome thing right now and they really need your support. There is enough problem with the whole console situation and everything to move the graphics forward. Of course, there will be a huge difference between the PC gaming and console a year from now, because consoles are not gonna implement that feature for a while, I think. They will most likely try really hard to do that in the PlayStation 5 and Xbox, whatever the name will be, if it will still be alive. Kind of a tough time for Xbox at the moment, as far as I know. But yeah, there's that. I hope you are as excited about the RTX as I am, because I think this is the most awesome thing that happened with real-time graphics, maybe ever, considering the leap how quickly games will become very differently looking. It's just really important to understand. We've seen the technology, we've seen the demonstrations, we haven't seen the games yet. The actual games that are created specifically for RTX, using all of its advantages in the visuals, in the pipeline, in the ability to spend the money not on the stupid chasing of quality with the old school lighting systems, and actually dedicate more time to make more elaborate and awesomely designed games. So I think it's gonna be really cool, and I'm really excited about that. Now, if you're still here, I wanted to talk about another thing. Someone in the comments recently mentioned that I should definitely invest into a VR headset to try out the virtual reality sculpting technology, software, and stuff like that, and maybe that's true. But one thing I wanted to talk about, or really discuss with you guys, especially with the ones who have the Oculus Rift or some other VR headsets, how exactly can you use it aside from actual VR apps? This is the key moment for me. The one thing that I always imagine that definitely any VR headset should support, being able to wear the headset and see a virtual display in front of me. Not the surrounding world, but the two-dimensional, like instead of this display, I would see a virtual rectangular shape that is somewhere in the space, maybe in the black space, maybe you can choose a different background, whatever. So I would see a virtual display that would be as big as I want it to be, so it would be positioned anywhere I want it to be positioned, and pretty much have my display replaced with a virtual one, so I could just throw away all of these displays and just use a headset and have as much displays as I want. I don't think that's possible, right? There is no software dedicated to this kind of stuff. I've never seen it actually mentioned ever. Like, no one shows it. I googled it quite a lot. It doesn't seem to be a thing, and that's really weird to me. I think this is one of the main problems that VR market is facing. The compatibility with everything else outside of the VR specific programs. I feel like I don't really want to buy the VR headset, and I'm probably speaking for many other people that also don't want to buy it, is because there's very few things that I can use it with. Yeah, there are already quite a few awesome games, there's Doom VR and other stuff, but I won't be able to use it every day. I want to wear it like instead of a display, to have full compatibility with everything that I already have. So I would be able to browse internet just wearing my headset and seeing a virtual display in front of me. This seems like a very simple thing to implement, and it will bring a lot more usability for the headset. They don't seem to do that. I don't know why. It seems like a very important thing, making the VR headset compatible with anything that is not VR at all. What do you guys think? I think it's a really cool idea, and the second step for that is of course replacing the black surrounding of your virtual display with your actual room. So for that we need to add actual external video cameras reading everything around you in your actual room, so you will have the augmented reality experience while working with a virtual display, literally throwing away your physical displays, wearing a headset, seeing the same room but with as many, as giant as you want displays. Like you could have a virtual cinema right in your room. But that's like number one thing that I would want to use a VR headset with. What do you guys think? Is it possible? Is there any kind of indie software that would allow to do that? I think it would be really huge and amazing to have that. And as a conclusion, just imagine VR headset working with RTX graphics. Aw, yeah. Kind of literally fully realistic experience we're talking about. So yeah, generally, I've never done a video talking about the new technology or anything like that, so I decided to do this finally, especially right now, days after the Nvidia's presentation. Just wanted to share my excitement and just how I see the things that are going on. I'm always super excited about the new graphics technology, graphics specifically, because this is my thing. This is something that always was blowing my mind and made the main reason for me to wake up in the morning and try to push it forward, as well as the rest of the people in the industry. This is so cool. Am I right? Am I right? I'm right. So yeah, tell me guys what you think. I really want to hear from you. What do you know, if you know more than I do, about the RTX question? Is it really gonna be powerful? I think it's definitely gonna be worth buying. And what about that VR headset thing with the support of the two-dimensional virtual display inside of your 3D virtual world, inside of the headset, inside of the room, inside of the building? You get the point. So let me know in the comments. I really look forward to read what you guys have to say. And I thank you for watching. If you did, I guess you did. If you're here, leave a like and subscribe. Tell a friend. Trace your rays. because soft shadows, you see? This is literally the thing. Do whatever you want. And I will see you in the next one. Bye. Like, imagine if I wouldn't have to deal with this farting thing.